Hey, did you know that 2/3 of men, according to a recent study, expect some irritation when they shave? If you were born after 1970, there's a good chance your first razor was a multi-blade razor. They have been the status quo for over 50 years. And where has it gotten us? Nowhere. Over 2 billion plastic razors entered the landfill each year in the U.S. alone. More and more people are opting to either stop shaving, or explore other more invasive hair removal methods. Well, that's why Hensen Shaving wants to change the shaving industry. Not through gimmicks like subscriptions or moisturizing strips, but through groundbreaking research on the impact shaving has on your skin. And here's the dirty secret about shaving. The razors, they're all just as sharp, the actual blades. The whole key is the distance of the razor from the blade from the actual razor housing, because otherwise it starts to bounce like a diving board. Hensen makes their razors in their aerospace machine shop in Canada that made parts for the Mars rover and the International Space Station. Their machinists are obviously extremely good at machinery and manufacturing, and very precise. 0.0013. That's the distance that the blade is out from the razor on a Hensen shaver. These shavers are really beautiful. They feel nice in your hand. They will last you a lifetime. And here's the beauty of this, and this could only happen in Canada. They made a great razor, not necessarily a great razor business. So once you buy the razor, it's going to cost you $3 to $5 a year to continue to use that with new blades, because they don't use those proprietary blades. They just use those old-timey, what do you call it? Just the razor.
Straight
blade.
razors, yeah.
Yeah,
razor
dual edge. It's a fantastic gift for, really anybody who shaves.
I've been shaving a lot more lately because I switched to a Hensen shaving.
Oh my gosh, look at you.
Look at how smooth that shave is.
Very smooth. For me, right here and right here, I never even use any shaving cream. But if you do, it is time to say no to subscriptions and yes to a razor that's going to last you a lifetime. Visit hensenshaving.com/Sam. Pick the razor you want and use the code SAM, S-A-M, to get a free shaving cream with your razor. Just make sure you add it to your cart and it will be free. Enjoy. Believe me, you will. And now for the show.
The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
The destiny of America is always safer in the hands of the people than in the conference rooms of any elite.
Sam Seder.
They are unanimous in their hate for me, and I welcome their hatred.
We must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
Ever get the feeling you've been cheated?
It is Tuesday, November 19th, 2024. My name is Sam Seder. This is the 5-time award-winning Majority Report. We are broadcasting live steps from the industrially ravaged Gowanus Canal in the heartland of America, downtown Brooklyn, USA. On the program today, Ukraine fires U.S.-made missiles into Russia for the first time. Meanwhile, Matt Gaetz accusations hacked as Trump vows to build out a full sexual assaulting cabinet. DNC chair race heats up as a new report shows Rahm Emanuel made some dubious stock trades while working for the government.
Liz Cheney for DNC chair it is.
Republicans stall as Democrats in Senate try and push to confirm more judges. Meanwhile, Republicans in the House push to ban transgender women from Capitol bathrooms. Senate to vote tomorrow on blocking some arms sales to Israel. Looters steal aid from 100 trucks in Israeli-controlled Gazan territory. Musk and Bezos head to venue-shopped Fifth Circuit to challenge the existence of the National Labor Relations Board. And H.R. 9495, the so-called terrorist financing bill pushed by AIPAC, which will target all and any nonprofits, is up for a vote tomorrow in the House. And then we'll be talking to Tyler Vasseur, shop steward with the National Association of Letter Carriers, Branch 9, who are organizing against an insulting 1.3% pay raise deal. All this and more on today's Majority Report. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. It is
Newsday Tuesday.
Newsday Tuesday. Yes, we can say that with confidence. We don't. It's not as sort of loaded as
Exactly right.
Fun Day Monday now.
We don't want to gaslight the public.
That's right. We will get back to our regularly scheduled Fun Day Mondays. We're just not sure when yet. Thank you for that, Matt.
Right.
Matt noticed my sort of like OCD when it came to the borders not lining up, and he just shifted the camera.
I mean, don't point it out, but there is one part that's still not
It's a work in progress.
Yeah. No, just Sam, just don't look. Close your put your
What
computer
did I
screen
just
on
do
dark.
with my sound sheet? Oh, great. I can't find my sound sheet now. What did I just do with that? Oh,
I have it in front of me if you need
yes.
some
Well,
assistance.
oh my gosh. Let's go right into this. There's a couple of things that are going to happen over the next, I guess, 6 weeks or so. One is that the Senate hopefully will rush to confirm as many judges as possible, and hopefully also confirm one more member of the National Labor Relations Board. So theoretically, they'd be able to stay until 2016.
26.
20. Yes. Geez, I'm sorry. Yep. It's one of those weeks. 2026. And the other thing that we're going to be doing is talking about a couple of votes that are going to take place over the next couple of days, and maybe a couple more in the lame duck. There's not going to be a lot of things that are happening over that time. And one of the things that we're going to be talking about is going to be the attempt by the incoming Trump administration to get all of their nominees to either sail through the Senate or sail around the Senate. And one of those people is Matt Gaetz. And what's amazing to me is we're starting to hear more. Obviously, there's this report. There's going to be a vote. Is it tomorrow? Is it tomorrow that they're going to vote as to whether to release the report in the House Judiciary?
Yes.
In the House Ethics. Yep. And who knows how that vote is going to go. My guess is they will vote not to release it because in the future, maybe some of them have a report they don't want released, and it will get out. Like even now, we're hearing reports as to what happened, and largely it's around eyewitness accounts of Gaetz at a party having sex with an underage girl, and rampant drug use. Very little talk about Pete Hegseth's, I think, even more damning, frankly, potential rape accusation that is out there. But this is the cabinet that Donald Trump wants to assemble. And the real question is going to be, is he going to go around the process? But here is Mike Johnson talking about the Gaetz report.
And I don't think the committee should make that decision
because I don't want to open that Pandora's box. We're in a different era, okay? If there was a breach of this in the past, so be it. But now we live in the age of the 24-hour news cycle. Now we live in the age of social media. The politics and the dynamics are very different. And I would be concerned about opening the Pandora's box of saying that the House Ethics Committee, with its vast resources and unlimited power, effectively, could investigate private citizens and release reports about them. I don't think we want to go down that road. And I think it's an important principle for us to maintain.
Has Trump or any of his advisors urged you to take this position?
No, I have not discussed the ethics report with President Trump. And as you know, I spent a lot of time with him.
He's not.
He was
discussed it.
hanging out with him at a wrestling match or a MMA fight the other night.
I know. Yeah. I was surprised he was able to go, but because there was at least one woman in the audience. Tulsi Gabbard was there, but I guess I don't know how that works with these religious fundamentalists, because his wife, I don't think, was around. Maybe, in the locker room or something.
I'm sorry. The argument that he hasn't had time to talk to Donald Trump about it is laughable. But that is Mike Johnson essentially threatening other members of the House, like, hey, if we can release this on Gaetz after he leaves, I mean, it means that other people might not be able to escape any type of accountability if they do something wrong just by resigning from the House. And so that the opportunity is going to be foreclosed for you. And, maybe the real problem is that Gaetz just didn't have a son who would in some way inhibit his activities by shutting down his Chrome browser in some fashion. Incidentally, apparently, according to reports, the Venmo payments to these 17-year-old girls, incidentally, went through the guy that Gaetz claims is his adopted son or something.
Nestor.
Yeah, just a little bit of a
story?
twist there that makes it a little bit more intriguing.
And apparently he announced to the press that Nestor was his adopted son 2 days prior to his alleged co-conspirator being basically named in public in that investigation. So it seems like suspicious timing to proclaim someone who was at least maybe sending payments for you to underage girls, that boy is your son. Sounds more like your connection to underage girls. I don't know.
Tucker Carlson had Gaetz and Nestor on to talk about how beautiful their relationship is.
I wonder if what the rules are. Maybe somebody on the IM can tell me what the rules are for children testifying against their parents. Is there any type of
that could be relevant,
because you're not you can't be forced to testify against a spouse. I don't know what that is in terms of kids, but I wouldn't be terribly surprised.
Giuliani should have adopted Trump.
He should have. I can't. Does that affect attorney-client privilege? So many layers to this. I can't tell if Trump is appointing accused rapists as the first order thing, or if he feels like to just be like, hell yeah, this is the campaign I ran. I showed that dumb lady and abortion rights no more, and all those manosphere folks, I've got your back, buddy, Elon Musk and all. Or it's probably a little of that and more of, if they are in a precarious situation, like have a pending accusation against them, it gives me more leverage over them to do whatever the hell I want.
Yeah, and here's how it could go down in terms of a recess appointments. As you know, the Senate Democrats would have the ability to filibuster a Trump nominees. Generally, senators acquiesce and say, the guy won, he can get his appointments unless they're egregiously unqualified. For instance, like Gaetz, who's barely a lawyer, being head of the DOJ and is up on the, has been investigated for these type of activities. Or someone like Hensen, who in his wildest roofie-inspired dreams could never have imagined that he would ever be appointed anything remotely close to the Secretary of Defense because it's so outlandish.
Maybe like the local chapter of his Proud Boys of a Proud Boys organization, but that's, I think, was probably as high as his ambitions might have been.
Or let's say RFK, who is an anti-vaxxer, being in charge of the CDC. I mean, all of these things are fantastical in many respects. And so it is, in my opinion, very likely that Trump is going to appoint those that he gets word from the Senate can't pass through the Senate in terms of like Republican votes. And here's how it could go down. Now, remember, if you get a recess appointment, it only lasts for 2 years, or really until the next Senate elections, and the next one are in 2026. And you cannot be paid. But if you have, let's say, a bunch of billionaires hanging around, I'm sure there's a way to get around that, sell a watch or something to somebody for a lot of money. This is how it would work. The Senate has to be adjourned for 10 actual days. The Senate has to vote a 50-vote majority to adjourn. It's a privileged motion. So it comes first in line, and it doesn't require a 2/3 majority. There's no way to filibuster this. Now, if the Senate doesn't want to do it because they seem like they want to pretend like they actually are senators and they're not going to kowtow to anybody, the other way that it can happen is that Mike Johnson gets his House to adjourn. And if the Senate does not take up this measure, it is arguable, but I'm sure Donald Trump will just blow through it, that Article 2, Section 3 of the Constitution, when there is a disagreement in adjournment between the House and the Senate, the president can call for an adjournment. Now, that would force the Senate to adjourn, but the Senate could come back within a day if they wanted, as long as they adjourn. They don't have to adjourn for 10 days. They will not do that. They will pretend like it's out of their hands. They will acquiesce to Donald Trump because that's what he wants them to do, and that's what they're trained to do. And I think all of these nominees are going to sail through. I think it has as much to do with Donald Trump wanting these nominees, because again, these are people who, the vast majority of them, realize they have absolutely no business being even close to what they're nominated for, and they owe it all to one person, and that is Donald Trump. And that's what he wants. He wants total fealty from these people. He wants absolutely zero resistance, zero fealty to the Constitution, zero fealty to institutional norms, zero fealty to the concerns of the party, zero fealty to anyone but him. And I think that's why he's going to do it. He's going to show the Senate, I'm going to do this whether you want or not. And it's just one more way to sort of train them to acquiesce to his power. I mean, we talk about this yesterday. We see this everywhere.
Yeah.
Saw this with, Joe Scarborough.
But these are so egregious. Like, I understand. I think you're probably right. But maybe Gaetz is the sacrificial guy that they put out there so they can get everyone else through. I mean, it's like he's the most hated Republican by Republicans who's not named Ted Cruz. I just can't think of anybody they definitely hate him more than Cruz. And if Trump not being able to run in 28, at least for now, like, does that change the calculation? I don't know if I'm just trying to find a glimmer of hope in this situation, or if it's hope against hope, but like there's a chance. Gaetz seems like it's going to be a bit of a tough hill to climb, but then maybe he'll just do the recess thing. And like, I don't know if Thune and those Republican senators who think more highly of themselves than the House Republicans who just kind of follow suit will bristle at their authority being kind of questioned in this way, or them being humiliated like this.
Oh, they'll bristle, but they're going to say, "Oh, the House is adjourned. The president has said his constitutional authority exists under Article 2, and there's nothing we can do about it. But in fact, there is something they could do about it if they wanted. People should be aware, and you may be right. You may be right. But
I have no idea. Yeah.
And I know that you're trying not to get involved in bets these days. But
that's why I said I've got no opinion on the matter of how it'll show.
Me having an opinion on a future outcome? No, couldn't be me.
That's the old me. That's the old me.
Well, we'll see. But I just want people to be aware of how this could go down, and the Senate has the ability, even in that situation where Trump invokes a constitutional authority, they have the ability to stand up. Do not let them get away with, at the very least, pretending that it's out of their control. Watch this very carefully. It's really important to sort of measure what's going to happen. All right. A couple words from our sponsor. In a couple of minutes, we're going to be talking to Tyler Vasseur. This has been ongoing at the post office. There are 3 or 4 unions. I think 4 unions in total that involve the post office. 2 letter carrier unions. One of them has been in negotiations for multiple years, and what they've won through these negotiations seems incredibly anemic. And there's an attempt to sort of like create a reform movement in this letter carrier association. We'll talk to him in a moment about this. I've mentioned to you that, one of the ways that I get through my week, particularly when I have my kids, or my kid, I guess, I'm half an empty nester, is I try not to have to kill myself to cook, but I want to occasionally, once or twice a week, show a model for my son that, home cooked meals, and the easiest way for me to do that, and the way to do it with the best food, is HelloFresh. HelloFresh makes mealtime nearly hassle-free. Has delicious, home-delivered, chef-crafted recipes that come together quickly and are less expensive than takeout. Want to thank HelloFresh for supporting the Majority Report and for allowing me to make a home-cooked meal a couple of times a week for my kid. And here's an offer from HelloFresh. Get 10 free meals at HelloFresh.com/free-majority. Doesn't matter whether you're craving hearty comfort food, trying to please picky eaters, or looking for a calorie-smart meal plan, HelloFresh has all those options and more available on a rotating menu of 50 recipes to choose from every week. It's pretty crazy. I did a sort of like I guess I went on a sort of a, I don't know, sort of a Chinese food bend. I used to work at a Chinese restaurant years and years ago, but I made a mushu pork bowl, and I made some hoisin turkey tacos. And here's the dirty little secret. It took me about 20 minutes. 20 minutes each, and home cooked meal. And Saul's actually now at the age where spices, and he's more interested in different types of food. And so this is a win-win for everybody in the house. You can customize recipes, so each meal is just the way that you like it. For instance, Saul doesn't like cilantro, so I leave the cilantro out for him. There are always options available to trade or upgrade proteins or swap out side dishes. Plus, you can check out HelloFresh's market for over 100 add-on items like dessert, quick breakfast, snacks, a lot more. This month, they have Thanksgiving items, so you can wow the folks at your Thanksgiving dinner without having to do as much work. Get 10 free meals at HelloFresh.com/free-majority. Applied across 7 boxes. New subscribers only. Varies by plan. That's 10 free HelloFresh meals just by going to HelloFresh.com/free-majority. Also, one other thing that, I don't know, I relate insurance to my kids, but there's a lot of stuff, obviously, these days that are out of your control. One thing you can regain control of is your family's financial future with life insurance through SelectQuote. SelectQuote is one of America's leading insurance brokers. They have nearly 40 years of experience. I think they're the oldest brokers, or at least I think so, helping over 2 million customers find over $700 billion in coverage since 1985. Don't hold me to that, but that's a long time. I don't know if there's other ones out there. Other life insurance brokers offer impersonal, one-size-fits-all policies that may cost you more and cover you less. SelectQuote's licensed insurance agents work for you to tailor a life insurance policy for your individual needs in as little as 15 minutes. Have you ever worried about getting coverage with a pre-existing health condition? SelectQuote partners and carriers that provide policies for a variety of health conditions. If you got high blood pressure, no problem. If you got diabetes, that's fine too. If you have heart disease, SelectQuote partners with carriers that can cover these conditions and others. Or if you don't have any major health issues, they work with carriers that can get you same-day coverage with no medical exam required. Head to SelectQuote.com and a licensed insurance agent will call you right away with the right policy for your life and your budget. I will tell you this. When my first kid was born, I got some term life insurance. And when my second one was, I got some term life insurance just to get past the early 20s essentially. And it is honestly, it is incredibly important to do for your family, but it also is just makes you feel, you don't feel like there's something nagging over your head. And this makes it really easy to do. Get the right life insurance for you for less at SelectQuote.com/majority. Go to SelectQuote.com/majority today to get started. That's SelectQuote.com/majority. Okay, let's go into, I just want to make sure that we flag this. Tomorrow, the Senate is voting to block some arms sales to Israel. Let's God, where did my sound sheet go?
I have
new
it here,
senator
Sam.
from New Jersey. Let's play this clip that is happening. Remember, there was a 30-day deadline for the U.S. to assess whether Israel, not to assess. The 30-day deadline was set because the U.S. said Israel is not in compliance with its own laws, U.S. laws, saying that you cannot inhibit humanitarian aid and get arms sales. And then the U.S. just sort of blew off their own metrics that were written in this letter, saying that there had to be almost, I think it was 350 trucks a day. There hasn't been anything close to 350 trucks a day. And Israel is sending them in to areas which Israel controls, but is allowing essentially, criminals, for lack of a better term, to hijack these trucks very conveniently, I should say. But here is, what number is this?
9.
Here is...
His name's George Hemley. He's basically the interim senator from New Jersey until Andy Kim is going to take over in January. But this is Menendez's seat he had to give up.
Yes. Here's what he had to say. This is yesterday.
About what is causing the scale of suffering in Gaza and the West Bank, and why we are seemingly unable to alleviate it in any significant way. These questions are not abstract. They stem from what I have seen and heard with my own eyes and ears during a recent official trip to Jordan to assess the state of humanitarian assistance in Gaza, the West Bank, and Lebanon. What I saw was this. There is a de facto blockade of even the most basic aid supplies getting through Karim Shalom crossing, the only viable point of entrance for aid to Gaza and the West Bank. This blockade has severely restricted the amount of aid to make it to the desperate Palestinians whose lives literally depend on it. Just today, it was reported that nearly 100 trucks transporting life-saving aid were violently looted at gunpoint, adding yet another unique challenge to getting aid to civilians. The effects of this choke point have resulted in other absurd outcomes. I recently toured warehouses, including one that U.S. Secretary of State Blinken toured himself, stocked to the very brim, particularly practically overflowing with life-saving aid supplies. This blockade has prevented the safe transport of those supplies into Gaza and the West Bank, where just miles away, women, children, and families are literally starving. These are pallets upon pallets of food, medication, pillows, latrines, and winterized tents to keep families warm as winter sets in. All of it just sitting there because of a man-made blockade. What I heard was this. I met with medical surgeons and doctors of the Jordanian Armed Forces serving in Gaza, who recounted harrowing stories of amputations on children, futile attempts to keep the malnourished alive, and operations in makeshift tents under live fire and drone strikes. These frontline providers, heroes, told me the number of partially operational hospitals are resorting to using everyday materials, like sewing thread for clothes, to stitch up patients after surgeries because they have run out of appropriate medical supplies. That should appall every one of us.
I just gotta say, he's from my hometown and went to high school in my hometown, smaller town in New Jersey. Represent, because like he only has 2 months left and is using this as an opportunity to be on the right side of history. So credit to George Hemley there.
Where is the guy from the ADL and AIPAC to say that this guy's anti-Semitic?
Yeah.
I would imagine that's going to be a following. So there is a vote tomorrow, a resolution of disapproval that is filed by Bernie Sanders. I think Van Hollen has said that he's going to vote for it. It sure sounds like Helmy will vote for it.
Warren, Van Hollen, it's Bernie's resolution. And the big thing that changed is that J Street is sending out, like J Street, not in terms of the power that AIPAC has, right? But a lot of, you'll see similar talking points sometimes from Democrats, and it's usually because J Street sent them guidance. Like AIPAC does that for Democrats and all Republicans. But the fact that they're saying it's time to vote yes on this is actually maybe good news for the vote total on the Democrat side. It still won't be enough, but
yeah, I welcome the help and them joining the chorus, but it's despicable it's taken them this long, frankly.
Totally agree.
And this was an organization that I was pretty excited about. I don't know, whatever it was, 10, 12 years ago when it launched. And in the most crucial moment, it failed to do what it should have done. But nevertheless, the more voices who can support this. So you have two jobs today. One, call your senator, tell them to vote in favor of Sanders' resolution of disapproval. And then two, that HR 9495, the so-called terrorist financing the bill, it basically says that the Treasury Department can decide unilaterally, without explanation, without any criteria, that a nonprofit organization is supportive of terrorist actions and strip them of their nonprofit status. Now, this is a bill that has been pushed by AIPAC as a way of undermining and smearing any type of organization. It could be, it could be, if not now, it could be J Street. It could really, it could be a lot of these organizations.
Human Rights Watch, yeah. Human
Rights Watch. It could be any of them. But this is an AIPAC push bill. It has come up for a vote before. It was a special session when it came up before, about a week ago, I guess it was, and it needed a 2/3 majority. It did not get it. They have now pushed it through committee, and it's coming to the floor tomorrow, and all it needs is a simple majority. There were 50 Democrats who voted for this. It is basically, I would say, you could probably overlay an AIPAC donation list and lay it perfectly over this list.
Or you could just send it straight to Justice Democrats about who we're primarying in 2020.
One could hope. but I'm going to read off these 50 names. But call your Congress people regardless, whoever it is, and tell them to vote against 9495. Allred, Budzinski, Carvillo, Case, Castor in Florida, Costa, Craig, Cuellar, Davids in Kansas, Davis in North Carolina, Dingell, Lois Frankel, Golden in Maine, Gonzalez, Gottheimer, Harder in California, Hayes, Hoyer, Kaptur, Landsman, Lee in Nevada, Levin, Manning, McBath, Mang, Moore in Wisconsin, Moskowitz, Mervan, Norcross, Pallone, Panetta, Pappas, Perez, Ryan, Pat Ryan, Schiff, Schneider, Scholten, Schreier, Sherman, Slotkin, Sorensen, Stanton, Stevens, Strickland, Swazi, Sykes, Thanader, Torres in California, and Torres in New York, of course, Vargas, Vasquez, and Wasserman Schultz. Call them because in the hands of, in the main, this is a bad bill. You should have to have a criteria when you determine and call an organization a terrorist sympathizing organization. There is no criteria. It's simply a determination made by Treasury. And understand, these Democrats are handing this power to Donald Trump to go after any nonprofit, Planned Parenthood. Name it. And they're going after it. So call your Congress people and your Senate today. Do it now. If you have to stop listening to the show, do it now. We'll put both of the switchboard numbers. Bradley, can you put those in the YouTube and podcast descriptions? Put them up now. Maybe even put them on the screen for a minute and call while you listen to the show. It'll take you 1 second to do it, honestly. Do we have those numbers?
We put this up earlier, but I'll zoom in on it again.
Okay.
That is alternative. You may phone the United States Capitol switchboard at 202-224-3121. That's 202-224-3121. Switchboard operator will connect you directly with the Senate office you request.
And it's the same phone number for the House as well.
That's the same house. So 202-224-3121. 202-224-3121. Call, ask for your senator first, and then your Congress person, regardless of what party they're in. I do not think, somebody had asked, could Treasury theoretically go after churches for this? And I think that their status is different. They're not a charitable organization. I don't think they have 501(c)(3) status. I think it's a different one. But it would be nice to get that rumor going to inspire some people. That wouldn't happen, but I don't know. It would be nice.
Would be.
All right. We got a couple minutes. Is Tyler with us?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Let's take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to be talking to Tyler Vasseur. He's a shop steward with the National Association of Letter Carriers, Branch 9. Going to walk us through what's been going on with the National Association of Letter Carriers and the deal that covers 200,000 people. We'll be right back. We are back. Sam Seder, Emma Vigland on the Majority Report. I want to welcome back to the program Tyler Vasseur, shop steward with the National Association of Letter Carriers, Branch 9. Tyler, welcome back. I can't remember where we were in this process last time we spoke, but the first, to explain to everybody, will you just walk us through the different unions that exist if you are a postal worker?
Yeah, so first of all, Sam and Emma, thanks for having me back on. Last time I was on was International Workers' Day, May Day, so it's been a good 5 months. I'm a shop steward with the National Association of Letter Carriers. It represents over 200,000 working letter carriers. If you include retirees, it's about 280,000 members at the United States Postal Service. There's also the American Postal Workers Union, representing clerks, mechanics, janitors, and so on. Which is the second biggest. And then there's two more that are a little bit smaller. The Rural Carriers Union, they have their own union, and the Mail Handlers Union as well.
So you guys in the letter carriers, the National Association of Letter Carriers tend to be more urban oriented. Okay, so give us the history of the lack of contract you've had and what union leadership has done over the course of, I guess it's pretty close to 2 years now. A year and a half, at least, almost 2 years. A year and a half.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we went, our tentative agreement was announced on October, 18th? And that was after negotiations started in February of 2023. Our current contract expired in May of 2023. So it was over 500 days without a new contract. And the entire time, last time we talked, we were talking about the fight for open bargaining and contract campaign resolution that NALC members were fighting for going into our convention. It was to try to push back against that. The entire time leadership, the point of that resolution was we argued we needed two basic things: transparency, some sort of updates, and a real contract campaign, some sort of public fight. Two things that most unions do some form of.
Yep.
Because we were fighting against the closed door negotiations that our leadership of NALC on a national level was going with. We weren't told anything about negotiations basically the entire time.
And so October 18th rolls around, and this is in an environment where we have seen unions extract very large pay increases. When was the last time? So your contract ends in May 2023. When was the last time you guys got a raise? Like, how long was that contract in effect? Just to give people a sense of like how much letter carriers must have fallen behind relative to inflation. And we should say letter carriers were pretty important during COVID. I'm not sure people remember that, but and maybe they don't. Maybe even the leadership of the union doesn't remember. But give us a sense of like when the last time you guys got a raise was.
Yeah, so we still get, I always forget, is it every 10 or 11 months we get a step increase, and that's built into our contracts. You get a certain percentage just already, it's already negotiated for. And so those still happened during this contract while this contract was being negotiated. But it's based off of an old formula. It's based off of the contract that was settled last time. And so it doesn't reflect the new realities of inflation. We also get cost of living adjustments. This was something that was won by NALC members out of the fights in the 70s in their own inflationary times. But those cost of living adjustments, which happen, which are adjusted according to inflation, they're not one-to-one with inflation. So first of all, you don't get those when a contract's being negotiated. And second of all, our COLAs, our cost of living adjustments, are not one-to-one with inflation. They're a fraction. They're a formula based off of inflation. And then based on where you are in the steps, or where you are on the pay scale, you get a fraction of it. So those lower on the pay scale get a fraction of that fraction of inflation. And so basically what little increases we did get were based off of already built into the contract, based off of the last negotiated contract before this, all these rounds of inflation that hit us in the post-COVID era. And we didn't get any cost of living adjustments. But there's a really interesting article that came out that was based on the Bureau of Labor Statistics that showed of all the jobs they looked at, postal workers have fared the worst over the last 10 years. From 2013 to 2023, they said inflation averaged, was 31%. Postal workers' wages went up 18%. So we've taken a pay cut in the last 10 years as postal workers, if you account for inflation.
Can you explain a little bit more about cost of living adjustments? Because that was a key thing that was won during the UAW strike, and just like how much of a difference that would make in terms of the contract that you're looking to agree to.
Yeah, so without getting into the weeds too much, like I was saying, our cost of living adjustments were something that a lot of unions had and fought for, especially in the 60s and 70s, as inflation was picking up in the post World War II era. In the 60s and 70s is when inflation really started picking up, especially in the late 70s. NALC won that in the 70s out of those battles and that organizing. Basically, it's like, we use a formula based off of inflation to say, okay, you get an extra, amount of money on top of the general wage increase, the percentage wage increase.
So if inflation is, let's say, 4%, the real important figure is how much is your cost of living increase? You would think if inflation's 4%, the cost of living increase should be 4% because your cost of living has increased by 4%. Therefore, yours should be 4%. But under the existing contract, it's what, like you get half that, a quarter of that?
It's about half. And that is for those at the top of the pay scale. It's lower down on the pay scale. You get a fraction of that half. And so I remember just really quick, like on that point, I remember in 2022, I didn't know anything about how the COLAs worked. I was so excited. Everyone said, look at historic COLAs because inflation had been so high. I barely noticed a difference in my paycheck because I got a fraction of that percentage of inflation.
So the negotiations have been going on since February of 2023. And in October, they announced that the pay raise is going to be a whopping 1.3%.
That's right.
I mean, compare that to Boeing, right? Or compare like these recent contracts, right? UPS even $7.50 an hour over 5 years. This is what 1.3% increases annually. Boeing 38% pay increases over 5 years in their contract. Like, this is egregious.
Yeah,
and then
I think you could make the case. You could make the case that 1.3%. They could make the case that 1.3% is fine if our COLAs were 1-to-1 with inflation, because that at least would get us ahead of inflation. But as it stands, our diet COLAs, that's what we call it, the diet COLAs that we currently receive and the 1.3%, it amounts to a pay cut.
And Tyler, let me just correct you. It's not half, it's 0.4, which is retained in this contract. And again, that's the high end. And the only, I guess, like, it eliminates 3 early wage steps, which I guess in some ways lengthens the time that you get actually some type of wage step. I mean, it depends on how that, what the timing is. I don't have that information. And it shortens the progression to top pay. It's not going to take you 13 and a half years to get that 0.4 COLA. It's going to take you 11 and a half years to get to that 0.4 COLA. So after 11 and a half years, you will be able to keep up with inflation by less than half. And
something like that.
So, I mean, here's what's amazing to me. In July of 2023, the union could have said, okay, we're going to go into binding arbitration. Like, nobody looking at this would say, oh, okay, it makes sense that you are only, like, as inflation goes up, you only get compensated for less than half of it and no pay raise. Like, how much worse could have binding arbitration been than what the union is now pitching to you?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, that's one of the things, that's one of the reasons that the members are so angry. Well, first of all, just workers in this moment have heightened expectations. Inflation, I think, has been a driving force for workers to say, to sort of wake up and say, okay, what's going on here? We got to fight for more. I've got a union. This is what unions are for. Let's fight for wages to keep ahead of inflation. Then when, on top of that, you can say that in the abstract, but then you're seeing the UAW, you're seeing Boeing workers, you're seeing the longshoremen win record wage increases that haven't been seen in decades. And so then workers I think that was a big reason why the 1.3% was such a slap in the face to letter carriers, because they saw that from other unions.
I'm curious, about how you convince your fellow letter carriers to vote against this contract. And B, I'm curious how they have reacted to Donald Trump's election, because I could see people reacting like, we're lucky we have a job. Because, and I think, listen, if you're protected by the union, I don't know what Donald Trump's going to be able to do in terms of like cutting postal services. My guess is that they're going to do as much as they can. But I'm curious about how you argue about that and what the reaction has been from your fellow letter carriers.
Yeah. So I was hoping you get into some of these questions. So there was initially outrage online. All you saw was vote no. There's a lot of momentum, but that's confined, like to Facebook, Reddit. That also was conversations happening on the workroom floor. I'm a part of a reform group called Build a Fighting NALC. I'm the chair of the coordinating committee, and that kind of came out of the fight for open bargaining. Now we're, really fully into the fight for vote no, fighting for the right to strike, these sorts of things. What we're trying to say is that we can't rely on that initial momentum and anger alone. You have to actually get organized for a no vote. And so we had a vote no campaign launch. We had over 700 people in attendance, all letter carriers, alongside other forces in the reform effort, Concerned Letter Carriers and Mike Cariff, two different groups that are running for the 2026 national leadership elections. And so what we're trying to do is we've been able to get or help people organize parking lot meetings and rallies, vote no group photos. NALC branches have passed vote no resolutions. I've counted roughly 60 group photos, and that's just the people who took pictures of people getting together saying, we can't just rely on momentum. We actually have to organize a no vote, hand out flyers, talk to people at these meetings, that sort of thing. And so I think that's the biggest thing. I don't think we want to put any illusions in arbitration. Arbitration was put in place after the 1970 Wildcat strike in order to prevent strikes from happening. They said, "Oh, you don't need the right to strike. We've got arbitration." Right. And our union has fared well in arbitration. I think it's made out ahead on most of those arbitrations. But ultimately, I think in BFN and Build a Fighting NALC, we're fighting for the right to strike, because this is exactly the type of moment that you would need the right to strike. That being said, in the moment, we're saying organize the strongest no vote possible. We want 75%. We want 80%. We want 90% no vote. So that when it does go to arbitration, that sends a strong message. And then combine that with the need for some sort of public actions, rallies, getting media attention, winning over the public. These sorts of positive pressure and leverage plays a role in arbitration. So we're not just saying put it to arbitration and hope for the best. We're saying put up a fight. In terms of Trump getting elected, the Postal Service and letter carrier job is very reflective of the broader U.S. society, the broader working class. I would say at least half of postal workers voted for Trump. And so on one hand, you have a lot of postal workers who are emboldened by that, said, all right, in their mind, they got their guy in, let's vote no and fight for more. There's lots of people, lots of carriers who I know personally, who I'm friends with even, who voted for Trump and support a no vote and want to fight for more. On the other hand, there are letter carriers that are, I think rightfully so, fearful of what a Trump presidency poses for labor, for unions, for women, for Black people, and so because of all the potentials that could happen under a Trump presidency to attack living standards for working class people. And so we have an interesting role to play in trying to balance those things. I don't want to write off anyone's rightful fears, but we also don't want to alienate people who have in my opinion, have illusions in a Trump presidency and think that he's in there for working class people. I disagree with that.
Well, I guess by voting no, they can test that theory out, and that's good.
Exactly. And just on that thing too, that's something that national leadership, I think they know this is a bad contract. They're not out there saying they're out there saying we can't tell you how to vote, that you have to make that decision, but then they hide behind fear mongering, and they fearmonger about postal finances, and they fearmonger about arbitration.
I wanted to ask you about that postal finances.
Mm-hmm.
There was an $11 billion investment in 1-year Treasury bonds, which I don't know. Maybe that's a good idea or not. I'm not sophisticated enough to know, from a financial perspective, particularly of an entity that size, if it makes sense or not to tie up that. But it appears as if that was, it was basically put into the balance sheets to make it look like the Postal Service was running a bigger deficit than it is. And it's a 1-year investment. The Treasury bonds you're not going to lose any money off of that. And particularly with where inflation is now anyways, it's unlikely that, you're going to. So what's behind that? I mean, what do we have a sense of what the Postal Service's, I guess, operating deficit looks like?
Mm-hmm.
Because I know for a long time it was a function of a law that was passed during the Bush years where the Postal Service had to pre-fund 75 years out in advance the health care for people that presumably aren't even born yet, who become Postal Services. We should say is the only requirement that has ever existed for such a thing in public or private sector, probably maybe in the history of man and woman anywhere. And that was reversed in 2022 because it was just so outrageous. Mm-hmm. But where is the Postal Services, like, sort of, what are their finances looking like?
Yeah, so that pre-funding mandate, first of all, it was the postal workers unions that fought to get that pre-funding mandate repealed. That was the beginning of when the Postal Service really hit financial problems. That took away a lot of the losses, but it didn't take away all of the losses. That being said, there's a really big sort of effort and momentum underway where people say, okay, open the books. Let's take a look. Where are you putting this money? And that's not just what you already have, what you already put out publicly, but let's really dive into them. There's also in the 1970 Postal Reorganization Act, 1970 or 71, whatever, it came out of the 1970 strike. It was when USPS became USPS. There's laws in there that saying that pay and benefits need to be comparable to the private sector. And it says that postal finances are not relevant to having to provide pay and benefits comparable to the private sector to the workers. And so if we bring it to arbitration, that should be the first thing you say. These postal finances should not matter. If our own union leadership is going to do the job of management and fearmonger about postal finances, I think we need to look at the fact that, okay, why are we getting any raises at all if they're losing all this money? Why did management get all these raises? Why did DeJoy himself?
DeJoy got like a 20% bonus on his pay, which is pretty. It's actually maybe 22% bonus. That's pretty good for an enterprise that is supposedly so strapped that they can't provide anything more than a 1.3% raise for its workers.
I think that if management cannot manage their own finances, then I think we really have to look and maintain USPS as this quasi public-private entity. And we think that the Postal Service provides an important service to the public. As packages become more and more important, having a public postal service with universal service obligations and a relatively affordable service, it keeps prices down for Amazon, for UPS, for FedEx. If we think that is important and management can't manage their own finances, then I think we need to look in the fact that maybe the Postal Service should be publicly funded. I think that is these are the things that we should raise.
This is a good point, time to remind people. We do not pay for the Postal Service. The Postal Service pays for itself. Now, I think we had to provide loans at one point, again, because of that pre-funding mandate. But the Postal Service is self-supporting. And in some ways, like you mentioned, it's a subsidy for Amazon and UPS. They basically hitch a ride on the back of the infrastructure that the Postal Service has provided. Mm-hmm. But they don't have the universal obligations, or A, they don't have the universal obligations. B, to the extent that they do provide close to universal service, it comes at a very, very high price relative to the Postal Service. So in some ways, like, this is, and again, it's like you say, the finances of the Postal Service is pretty opaque, but from the outside, with a guy like Louis DeJoy and this movement to, sort of have the Postal Service provide, it's almost like providing the roads in terms of a logistics question for other companies. In this case, it's roads, and often it's the last mile, and often it's the skies. It looks like real classic neoliberalism. And I'm talking the kind that came out of like Mont Pelerin, where it's basically, we're going to use government to enrich industry in many ways. And it's going to come at the expense of those people who are actually working for this enterprise.
Yeah. Amazon would not have been able to grow at the rate and the speed and the intensity that it has grown at over the last decade without the Postal Service. When I started in 2018, it was USPS delivered around 50%. I think it was just under 50% of all Amazon packages. That was when I started in 2018. I'm sure it's lower now. Amazon is starting their own deliveries, whatever else. But without the USPS, Amazon would not have been able to grow. And like you said, it's a subsidy for private corporations to be able to grow. And then now they're looking now and then turn around and say, and look at how useless the Postal Service is. They can't even manage their own.
But that's what DeJoy wanted, right? I mean, isn't that always really what his mandate was? Like, he came from the private sector, and that was what we anticipated when Trump appointed him. And so I guess my question is we went over it a little earlier, but like, what was the reaction within other postal workers to DeJoy's tenure continuing under Biden? And like, did that contribute to some of what you were saying about some of the discontent and the split among other members of the union?
Yeah, so I mean, DeJoy was implemented. So Trump appoints the postal board of governor members, who then appoint the postmaster general. But so essentially, Trump appointed DeJoy back under his first term. That was right after the Trump administration commissioned a study that looked into the Postal Service and said, what do we do about the Postal Service? That study came back and said, privatize the Postal Service. Then they turned around and appointed DeJoy, and DeJoy is putting in his 10-year plan to ultimately close down neighborhood post offices in favor of mega centers out in the suburbs like UPS, like FedEx, like Amazon have, and basically trying to mimic the private industry when, again, it's the United States Postal Service. If you close down every neighborhood post office, then guess what? People aren't going to drive out to the suburbs. And if you live in a city, aren't going to drive out to the suburbs to go to the post office. They're just going to go to the UPS store down the street. And that's what we're, ultimately, I think it's a veiled attempt to set up the infrastructure for privatization without openly saying the P word out loud.
So, so Tyler, if I'm a letter carrier, I'm a member of this union, and I'm listening to you right now, or I'm a member of the public, which I happen to be, and am supportive of letter carriers getting better pay, what should I do in both those circumstances?
Yeah, so if you are a letter carrier, I would say get involved in the Vote No campaign first and foremost.
How do they do that?
I can plug in a meeting here in a second, but ultimately, I think you should join Build a Fighting NALC, the reform effort that is getting organized. Since we've launched the Vote No campaign in our website, hundreds and hundreds of letter carriers across the country have joined, saying, I want to join joined online, saying, I want to join BFN. I want to start a chapter in my area. We're starting to build chapters across the country. We want to launch officially as a rank and file reform caucus. We're fighting for we're fighting for a vote no to fight for more in this contract. We're fighting for the right to strike. We're fighting to transform this union. We had our launch campaign a couple weeks ago, but a good place to plug in. So first of all, you can go to fightingnalc.com. Build a Fighting NALC domain was taken. Whoever has that, we want it back, but go to fightingnalc.com. Click there you can sign up there to join. We're fighting for things like a $30 an hour starting wage, top pay comparable to UPS, ending mandatory overtime, 100% COLAs, not diet COLAs, an all-career workforce, and the right to strike. a good place to, we're sort of a rank and file reform effort trying to get organized on the shop floors amongst the rank and file, but there are other forces in the reform effort, especially slates that are being formed to run for leadership specifically. An important one is CLC, the Concerned Letter Carriers. They're holding a meeting this Sunday at 3 p.m., November 24th at 3 p.m. Central Time. You can find that Zoom link. I can send it to you all if you'd be able to post that to register for that meeting. That'd be a great place to plug in and to be able to join the Vote No campaign for the home stretch. But ultimately, I would say get involved with BFN. If you agree with these things, if you want to fight for the right to strike, join us and help start a chapter in your area where we're getting organized on a much more serious basis along those lines.
Send us that link. We'll post it in the podcast and YouTube descriptions and at majority.fm. And for those of us who are not members of your union, what should we do?
Ultimately, what we've been arguing for is we're going to vote this thing down by the widest margin we can. And then we're going to, before it goes to arbitration, we want to do public rallies. We want to get out there. And so I would just say, pay attention. There's very likely going to be a rally in your area. Join that rally, get involved in that way. And I'm sure there'll be more calls to action and calls for solidarity coming out of that. And
thank your local postal carrier. Tell them you stand with them, and if they go on strike, if they reject this contract, you're gonna support them, and tell your friends that they should support them as well. Tyler Vasseur, thanks so much for your time. Like I say, we'll put all those links in the podcast and YouTube description. Shop Steward, National Association Letter Carriers, Branch 9. Appreciate it.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Have a good day. Bye-bye.
All right, folks. We're going to take a quick break, head into the fun half. Just a couple of IMs. Amazon wouldn't exist without the Postal Service. They exploited the USPS book rate back in the very beginning. Indeed.
The book stuff was very sort of smart because you're saying there's a smaller rate for books, Sam. Is that what that IMers alluded to? Yeah. And also books give a lot of information to a seller about the type of people buying the books. They're like, you can actually tell a lot about somebody about the type of books that they buy compared to like deodorant or something.
All right, folks. Just a reminder, it's your support that makes this show possible. You can become a member by going to jointhemajorityreport.com. When you do, you not only get the free show free of commercials, but you help the show survive and thrive. And it's going to be a challenge over the next 4 years. But we will hopefully all make it through. We will not capitulate to, the Trump administration, to any type of fascism that grows around these parts. We will not capitulate.
Me to cancel our flight to West Palm? I thought we were going there tomorrow just to make
sure.
Well,
we're doing that. We're doing that just to so that it's important to keep the open channels.
Or also clog the channels, as Sam usually does.
Look.
Enough.
There. I think we have been pretty consistent with the limitations of the Democratic Party and their failures. But we are going to stay engaged in this fight. There's going to be a DNC, a fight for the DNC chair. We're going to engage in that. We'll talk about it in the fun half, and we'll probably talk about it more coming up. But there is one vehicle for this, at least on a national level, to at least put us in a position to fight for the things that we want. And, we're going to pursue that. There's, and certainly, there are plenty of recriminations to go around, but the idea that you're, and there are people in the Democratic Party who want to blame the left because it's the easiest target always, even though there is absolutely zero evidence to support the assertion that the left of the party, that the progressives in the party did anything but work against a tide of decisions that range from, Jill Biden telling Joe, stay in the race 2 years ago, to, Joe Biden's campaign people saying, the weird thing seems mean. And Lynn Cheney, or Liz Cheney. Liz Cheney might be a good idea. So there you go. Also, justcoffee.coop, fair trade coffee. I've got a bag right here, actually. See this on the back? There's a number. And that number is 48879. And if you plug that in, or you can actually just use your phone and scan it, and you can see where it came from and how much Just Coffee paid for everybody involved in the process. And that for every single bag. Get the code. Oh, okay. And then enter the code. All right. Well, it's a little bit of a process, but go ahead. Emma, you talk. I'm going to check my code here.
On ESPN yesterday, we did a full recap of Week 11 in the NFL. Things are starting to get real. Some big wins for the Chargers, for the Seahawks, for the Steelers, for the Bills. Chiefs finally defeated this week, last week. So we went through all that, youtube.com/ESPN show.
Matt.
Tonight on Left Reckoning, Ryan Grimm talking about actually continuing the narrative of his books. We got people in the squad to talk about where we are, say AOC's relationship to the movements, Tlaib's course over the past year, and Bowman and Bush's losses. So check that out. Patreon.com/Left Reckoning, live tonight on YouTube at 7 o'clock Eastern.
So this here, this bag came from Honduras. The roast type is dark. The roast date was in July of 2024, right at the end. International lot code, I'm not sure what that is, but the price per pound paid was $2.64. And then there's actually a PDF link to the contract that they sign with their farmers in Honduras. I mean, this is completely transparent. And it's also great coffee. And they're a co-op. And someone just said, next time you're trying to remember if it's Liz or Lynn, just pick the one and then say the opposite. And that's what I do every time. That's why I always get it wrong. Hopefully I'm not going to have to talk about them anymore. So unless she becomes a DNC chair.
Obviously, that's who I'm pulling for.
Or on Morning Joe or something like that. They won't have her. They're too afraid. All right, we got to take a quick break. We'll head into the fun half. 646-257-3920 is the number. You can IM us by picking up the app at majorityapp.com. It's free. Oh, Lizard Cheney. That's it.
You got it. You'll never make that mistake again.
I will never make that mistake again. Lizard Cheney. I don't know why it took so long. Thank you, Noah from Tampa. You can pick up the app at majorityapp.com. It's free, and you can IM the show if you're a member. But you can also use the app if you're not a member. All right. See you in the fun half. 3 months from now, 6 months from now, 9 months from now, and I don't think it's going to be the same as it looks like in 6 months from now, and I don't know if it's necessarily going to be better 6 months from now than it is 3 months from now. But I think around 18 months out, we're going to look back and go like, wow. What? What is that going on? It's nuts. Wait a second. Hold on for a second.
The Majority Report.
Emma, welcome to the program.
Hey.
Matt.
What is up, everyone?
Nomi Key.
You did it. Let's go, Brandon.
Let's go, Brandon.
Bradley, you want to say hello?
Sorry to disappoint everyone. I'm just a random guy.
It's all the boys today.
Fundamentally false.
No, I'm sorry. Women's
Stop talking for a second and let me finish.
Where is this coming from, dude?
But dude, you want to smoke this 7A?
Yes.
Hi, me? Is it?
Yes?
Is this me?
Is it me?
It is you.
Is this me? Hello, is this me?
I think it is you. Who is you? No sound. Every single freaking day. What's on your mind?
Sports.
We can discuss free markets and we can discuss capitalism.
I'm gonna go throw up.
Who libertarians? They're so stupid though. Common sense says, of course.
Gobbledygook.
We fucking nailed him.
So what's 79 plus 21?
Challenge met.
I'm positively quivering.
I believe 96, I want to say.
857-210-35 501 1/2 3/8
9/11, for instance.
$3,400, $1,900.
654 $3 trillion.